We want to just take this opportunity to talk a little bit about TVL Tent, which is our This Valorant Life community. And I'm going to throw it over to Adam in terms of what we're hoping to accomplish with this community.
So this community is mainly a place for people like you guys that are trying to improve at the game, to have people around you that are similar. I know when I was trying to improve at this game, it felt pretty lonely, and you really don't have like a space to, I guess, differentiate yourself from the general Valorant community. And the general Valorant community, I think, has a lot of different parts of the game that we don't really enjoy. There's a lot of toxicity, there's a lot of cope, there's a lot of encouraging bad habits, and not really just playing the game how we think it deserves to be played. And our community is about respecting the game, respecting yourself, and respecting others. So if you think that sounds good, then I think you'll be a good fit for the community.
What we're going to be doing is that the paid community is $5 USD per month. There's a link in the channel description, and there'll be a link below as well. We're going to pool all those funds together, and when it reaches $800, we're going to actually create kind of a scholarship where we're going to have people apply, and the community is going to help us select who will win the scholarship and get to work with Adam through one of his coaching programs. And so that's one way we think we can take what this community is doing for good, give it to someone who may not otherwise be able to afford it, and is really intentional and excited about it. And so if this sounds like something you'd be excited about, we'd love for you to be a part of it. You can join us, ko-fi.com/thisvalorantlife. Thanks, guys. Hi, everyone. Welcome to This Valorant Life, episode 46. In this episode, are going through everyone's... I don't know what everyone's feeling is on this map. It's a map. It's Pearl. We're going to go through it. Hopefully, we're going to increase our win rate and your understanding the map so you can win more of your ranked games. We're going to start on the attack side. Adam, why don't you walk us through your comp? And this is admittedly more of a ranked comp than like a premier comp or a scrim comp. Walk us through this and why you think maybe this would be a good comp for us to use on Pearl.
Yeah, so I mean, the controller, you kind of can pick any controller in this map, but Clove is the ranked controller, so that's kind of where you start. Jett is a very popular duelist in general, but on this map you have long sight lines on B, so it's kind of important for an op to kind of be in play. So that's what the Jett's for. The Phoenix is a little bit interesting. I personally think Phoenix is probably one of the best duelists on this map. I used to kind of play a mix of like Yoru and I guess Phoenix combined to try to figure out which one was better, because flashes are really, really important on this map. And we'll kind of get into that on the executes, but having that pop flash is huge. And normally it's KO, right? KO is the pick here, but people aren't going to be picking KO in ranked, so Phoenix is nice. And he recently went through a couple of buffs, so Phoenix makes the B exec really viable, and we'll talk about that once we get to it. Sova is just a standard recon initiator. The drone is nice in mid when you need it, and obviously the dart is good to take sights. So you could replace the Sova with Fade as well, but
maybe was worth talking about, in just from a theory crafting perspective. Sova as a recon agent, so Sova and Fade both playable on this map. Where would a Tejo fit in or not fit in?
So the whole reason why you pick Sova or Fade normally is to stop op lines. Like those are the reasons why you pick them. So like B-Long being so like if B-Long didn't exist, you probably wouldn't be picking Sova or Fade. You'd probably be picking like you're saying Tejo or like maybe even a Sky. Sky used to be really good on this map. But the fact that Tejo doesn't have a scan on his dart, like you can clear corners, but if you look at B-Long, for example, there's just so much open space. So like if you're playing as a Chamber or Jett, they could position themselves in the open right on this X and dodge the little scan, and the Tejo drone is nearsighted. So you won't really be able to properly take B-Long if you play a Tejo, unless you have like a Harbor on the team and you're playing double controller. We might see something like that in pro games, but
that's pretty coordinated for ranked.
Right. Like Tejo is best used on maps where number one, ops aren't that used, and it's because ops aren't, or it's because the maps are a little bit like close quarters that you don't use in op.
And as
So-
a secondary initiator rather than as the prime recon initiator.
Right. So you might be seeing him like on split, fracture, and bind, for example, but not really a pearl. I wouldn't think, at least.
Okay, so maybe where I want to start off would be, what does a default look like on this map?
There's a couple of variations. We can kind of just break it down into your B default, your mid default, and your A default. Starting with the B default, normally if you play Astra, you would have a pullback star here, but just for the sake of this, let's just pretend your jet smokes it. This will allow you to kind of cross the little main section. Along with that smoke, your Sova should use some type of util to help clear pillar. Like this little cubby and like pillar area is kind of important to clear. I don't know the best way to do this, but if I was playing Sova, I would literally just throw it here and just call it a day. Some people
There's
might
probably
just...
some really geeky dart lineup that is much harder for anyone to shoot.
Right. So you're clearing this early space here. And then after that, you just grab the orb and that's your default. So ideally in this setup, your Killjoy is away from you guys and holding space. So what that might look like is your Killjoy is going to be window with like an alarm bot set up and a turret set up to hold the rest of the map. And then after your teammates get that B orb and pressure the defender's counter smoke on the choke like this, you can kind of just reset and go from there. If you get the pick, you could speed up. Doesn't really matter, but this is your B default. The goal here is just to deny the players B that jump spot info if they're playing elbow back here, or deny the info of like the jet op line like this. So it's actually not that common though in ranked anymore to do a B default because people don't really cancel. So they go B and then they just keep going, and then they run into a pretty strong site hold. So that's the B default. Let's talk about mid default that I think is a little bit more popular now for a good reason. So if you're a Sova player, you jump on the little box here and then you can easily aim your dart into this corner. There's like a little satellite dish. It basically scans all of close mid and I believe it gets this corner too, just the way it looks. But that's the dart to clear mid. And then you normally pair that with the smoke. So with this default, we could smoke connector so that you can take street control. Let me move the Killjoy here. The Killjoy actually will have a slightly different setup. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember exactly what that setup was. I wanna say it's an alarm bot there and turret somewhere here to watch the B push, and then they're sitting in window. It's something like that. That's the Killjoy setup. And your teammates actually aren't defaulting B at all. If you had an Astra, you would do a pullback star, but we don't have an Astra, so your Clove might smoke the cross if she wants to invest one of her smokes there. Otherwise, it's just you don't show any pressure B. If you're playing Cypher, you would cage it. Instead of Killjoy, you would, but we aren't. So this is probably what this looks like. Your Killjoy might actually solo walk up A main, but then B is open. My point is, the extremities aren't really like solidified as a strong default here because we don't have the best comp for this. So in ranked, your Killjoy would probably either just go mid with the homies or walk up A main alone while everyone else is fighting mid.
How worried or not worried are you on this map about lurks on the defense?
It's not that common.
Or flanks, rather.
Yeah, it's not that common. Like defenders might like push up to this point, like by these boxes here, and then defenders might push up to here, but really pushing after that to try to get kills, it does happen, but it's rare that it will actually get a kill, I guess. Because like the actual push to go and get a kill, the distance takes so long that, you know, by that time you'll probably like turn around or you'll be deeper in mid, so you won't even get caught by it. That's a good question though. But with this default here, you're just trying to get street. Normally there's like an enemy alarm bot or turret. Normally it's a turret actually in this corner, and you're just defaulting it to break the turret there. If you get a kill, amazing, but that's normally the default. There's a couple of variations though I want to touch on. So instead of smoking connector, you smoke deep street. It's not even deep street, but like here, and you might not even use a dart. You might just drone instead, and this will allow you to take connector, and you aren't actually gaining any space towards a bomb site. But if you control connector,
control rotates, or you control the fast rotate.
Exactly. So now you can kind of go back and forth between B and A, and the defenders are kind of like, they have this crazy long rotate and spawn, which is incredibly annoying to play. So if you're playing a really slow default, or even if you're on like an eco round, this is the eco strat. You just go directly into connector and see what happens. And then the other variation of the mid default is doing nothing mid doors and taking art. So this kind of looks more like an A split, but it doesn't have to be. Your Sova will start A side and dart through the little window, just directly on the ceiling.
Are you smoking door if you're taking art?
No, it's very uncommon to smoke door, but I understand why you would. But no, it's not really that common. You might have like a player hold it or something.
Have someone hold it, okay.
But yeah, most of the time you just don't smoke it. So you have this dart here, you have the smoke deep for the cross, and then everyone's kind of just going to take art. Maybe you have one player stand back. And this kind of looks like a split, because after your Sova darts, you could drone A main and do an A split from there, or you can just default orb control and get the orb and reset. There's a lot you can do once you have mid control, but you don't have to force anything. So even though it may look like an A split, it's also considered a default.
When you say mid control, are you talking about just controlling this space, or are you talking about having either this or art?
Yeah, so I'm talking about the second. Like typically attackers will always have that first little area anyways, but it doesn't pressure the defenders. So to properly have mid control, you would need one of the lanes. So you would need either streets or either arts. And I guess you don't have to have full street, you just have to have partial, or you're taking connector. But yeah, you want to pressure it slightly, burn some util from the defenders, and ideally, if they're playing a sentinel, you're breaking some of that util there, so you can enable lurks.
And so let's say you've taken connector or you've taken art. What is the flow chart in your mind about where you go from there? Is it that you've taken connector and then, I guess connector is more neutral, but if you're taking connector and part of street, does that influence you to more move towards a B split? Or if you're taking art, does it influence you more to take an A? Or are you just kind of taking that space, waiting, seeing if you can get some kills, and then deciding from there?
Normally in ranked, you kind of just go on the part of the map that you're biased towards. So if you're street, you go B side. If you're art, you go A side. But ideally, I think the way it would play is you would do the opposite. So if you have street control, you make it seem like you're ending B, but then you actually go back to A, so that you've kind of like gimmicked, or like you've outplayed their rotates essentially. And that it's really hard for defenders to actually read that, because they don't have the info in mid. So I would say ideally you actually use a little bit of brain power and discipline to go to the other bomb site, but it's kind of hard to do in rank, so sometimes you just see people speed up. And last default, it's pretty simple, but you just take A control, get the orb and reset. So you might have your Sova dart somewhere here. When I play Phoenix, I like to commit a flash here, just because it's pretty common for defenders to aggress. So I'll walk up to this corner flash, form the Phoenix orb. You don't really need more than 2 players to do this. If you want to, you can, but typically with this default, everyone else is kind of yonder. Like they might be like walking mid, or they might be, normally just walking mid. But yeah, typically you just get this orb reset and it baits out the defenders.
Straight after barrier, can someone make it behind this box without running?
If both players are shift walking, they'll meet on this line here. So like the Omen to the Phoenix here.
Why don't we start then on an A hit? How do you think through, what are the viable A hits? Can you just go straight A main and then smoke off art? Or are you always thinking about splitting?
I mean, to be honest, I actually don't like splitting, doing an A split. Even though like objectively it is better, I find that defenders actually do a pretty good job of holding down this area and slowing down players. So if that is the case, I kind of just 5-man A and hope for the best. You don't have the best exec when you play Clove, because you can only smoke off 2 of the 3 areas. But if they don't have an op, which I feel like is kind of, it happens semi-frequently in rank that they don't have an op, so you can kind of just brute force A. So your 2 smokes are going to be here. One detail I want to kind of show on the flower smoke here is a lot of people tend to do it a little bit deeper, but then that gives them that corner to play in, so just make sure you put it a little bit more out. So these are your 2 smokes. After you get aiming control.
The art smoke, I think, is you don't have to have any brain power to understand we want the art smoke. What is the thinking behind the dugout smoke versus a flower smoke?
The main reason that we don't smoke dugout is actually because we want to take it. So if you can kind of take dugout in the post, this is your power position. It is semi-difficult to actually control this space, but if you do control it, then you have a pretty good strong side on the post plant. The other reason is because flower is the closer position for defenders to rotate to. So if you end up smoking off secret, then you might actually just be fighting a lot of rotators in this flower angle, which could be kind of annoying, especially because the sightline in flower to A main does exist. Like they could be back here shooting you A main, which is kind of annoying. So yeah, it's primarily to take secret, but it's also a side effect of the rotates being quicker there.
And then in terms of positions on site, what are the positions? Because there's, not everyone's going to be playing this comp. And so what are the positions on a defending side as an attacker that you're trying to clear? It's like here, I guess, dugout, behind box.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, as you can kind of tell, playing close isn't very viable for defenders. So as soon as you kind of do like that initial util or run out clear, all of your attention is kind of focused on backside and dugout. Maybe in art flood, it does happen. Like this player art is kind of ready to run out. So you want like a little bit of attention in your mind that someone could be running out. So if you have some util, like say you're playing Phoenix or Killjoy, you actually might chuck a molly in there. So you can kind of focus your attention on the bomb site. But in this case, if you're playing Phoenix, you flash close, you clear close right, and then you kind of just scale towards site to try to take back site like this.
Why left side box instead of right side?
Yeah, so if you scale right side, you're going to be W keying, like W peeking towards dugout, which is they can kind of catch you in that motion. So by scaling towards the left, not only do you control the art smoke and the flower smoke a little bit better because you're closer to it, you also avoid the sightline from dugout a little bit more. So that's the main reason. But yeah, your double duelists typically will scale right side after they get out, and then your supporting agents would kind of come out towards church to hold the art smoke and also to get the bomb down. So speaking about bomb plant position really quickly, the most common will be in the corner, which will be for the A main plant. But if you can, especially if you're playing Gecko, because Gecko is actually pretty good on this map, you will plant front sight so that you can kind of see it from art as well. The problem is it's spammable from art, but you might be able to get it down if you're playing Gecko.
Where are you trying to take after sight? Like in the sense you were mentioning that dugout's a real power position. Are you talking about here, or are you trying to push out into this section?
Both. It depends on how many players you have. So if you have like a 2-man setup, you will probably have a player, let's just put the jet deeper here, and then your Phoenix on the corner here. So after your jet gets contact, your Phoenix swings, and then we kind of just play the line here. If you notice, there's a little like slant where the jet is. And she can kind of tuck herself into that little wall, and it's a pretty strong off angle, and then your Phoenix will play aggro.
I feel like so commonly, at least in the lower ranks, like people are W keying around this corner.
Yeah, free kill, super free kill.
So when they're just W keying into you, I just feel like it just feels so free.
And the nice thing about that is as soon as you get that kill, if there's not a player trading, you can kind of just step forward slightly and jump on the little box here, and then you can fight the player's flower, and that's pretty annoying for the retake. So yeah, controlling dugout was good. Occasionally you'll see attackers actually just full take art instead of dugout. Like let's say for some reason you have a read that there's more players dugout, or if that player actually did run out of the art smoke and we did kill them, sometimes you'll just see attackers make the decision to just push through the art smoke and control the space instead. And if you do that, I would say your conversion to win the post plant is actually probably higher than taking dugout, because your plant is going to be a little bit more open. So that is also a variation on the A bomb site execute, and it works pretty well.
And what about post plant? It feels pretty bad at times, but it feels that it's pretty common that people get stuck A main. Like, do you want to be A main? Do you not want to be A main ever? Because you get smoked off. What's your thinking behind that?
It really depends on where your bomb plant is. So if it's planted in this corner, you're probably playing for site for dugout specifically, because it's not planted for art. But if you do have an open plant, then by all means you could have like players fall back to A main, delay, and then you actually might have like someone do like a big wrap back to mid. Or if you already had a player in like a lurking position here, then doing the plant and getting offsite could be better. This works out a little bit more in pro play, because obviously you have like the Astra suck, the double mollies or better like spam coordination and stuff like that. But I would try to stay away from the whole post plant on like a main post plant in ranked. I would really only advise your A main players to fall back in doing this type of playstyle if you have art control already, so that you can kind of like ping pong the diffuse. Like A main players get contact and then art player gets contact and kind of so on.
Would you ever be hitting A main or A through art?
So that's probably the more common strat than going heavy A main, but it has like a less success rate. I wouldn't say it has a less success rate. It's just less straightforward.
It feels like you have to take A, you have to plant, but you also have to clear out A main. Like I feel like that's the hard part, is because you'll naturally, there's just a high percentage someone will be sitting A main and shooting you as you're planting.
Right, because like, yeah, you don't want to kind of be in that crossfire where they're backside or A main. So the best way to do an art split is actually to have one late A main, which will most of the time be your initiator, because they will use util through the window and then kind of just slow walk A main. So in this case, if you do an art split, your Sova is going to dart through the window, your Killjoy is going to be made with the team. Like it's probably going to be like some type of 4-1 here. And then the Killjoy util is kind of going to be holding your back for the mid door guy. And maybe the Killjoy is even full holding back to kind of like check everyone's smoke pushes and stuff like that, while all the other 3 players will scale. Your smokes will be like these 2 smokes instead. So you're still kind of taking the same space on site where you do the little backside routing here. But honestly, oftentimes with this split, you actually don't even scale backside. You just make sure you can cross the site, get that plant, and then typically everyone just falls back to art and it kind of plays the post from there. So sometimes if you can actually take connector, you can rat through the little crawl space and flank there. So it's a good split. It's just a little bit more difficult, especially if you're playing against Killjoy, the Kamali to delay.
Okay. Is there anything left to cover on A, you think?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe the Killjoy ult.
Okay.
This is the most standard one. So if you do this one, people mistakenly think that they should full take site. But if you notice, the ult actually clears art. So the best way to use this Killjoy ult is actually by art splitting, but in reverse. So you actually do the same smokes in the art split, but you take site and then you take art like this, instead of going the other way.
Got it. Okay.
You could consider, of course, just doing both smokes for backside and then just like taking the dry fight art. That's not bad either. But in my opinion, this is the best way to use the Killjoy ult. Just be aware that there is that little corner in art. I can't point with my cursor, but there's that little corner there.
Like right here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. How do we attack B?
Yeah, so that's where Phoenix comes in. So ideally, you don't use that much util to clear the early space. So what that might look like is one jet smoke here, and then a Phoenix will go into it and flash out, but not really using the Sova util. It's a little bit risky because you don't full clear pillar. But whatever, this is kind of your early util clear. Let's just pretend that that's kind of what gets you to clear this space. Because you do kind of want to save your dart, and using the drone, you could use the drone, it's just a little bit slower, and your ranked teammates probably won't wait for it. So if they have op money, you could use the drone, of course, but okay, so let's get into the actual exec. Let's just say we have the space and you are prepped for the exec. Pretty much what you're going to do with smokes, you have a couple of variations. You could do B-Link and Heaven, but what I've been seeing a little bit more, and I was actually wrong on this, I thought that clove smokes weren't big enough to actually smoke in Heaven again, but have the bottom of the smoke one-way CT. So it does one-way CT, but there can be gaps. So if that's something that you don't want to risk, you can actually center your smoke a little bit deeper and you can actually cover all of spawn. But they have that little corridor or that like alleyway to play in. But anyways, these are your 2 standard smokes. And
so
you kind of
Heaven and CT?
Yes, Heaven and CT.
And so at that point, then you are exposed to Hall and Link.
Correct. Link is a tough one, but even with or without the smoke, they would be able to kind of just run out anyways. So the variation that I was recommending was this before on Clove, because I wasn't sure if the spawn smoke covered it. So you could kind of go, you can go with this smoke or you can go with this smoke. Both are viable. I think it's kind of just splitting hairs whether or not you're more afraid of CT or more afraid of B-Link.
Okay.
But it's actually not that important if you have Phoenix. So with the Phoenix exec, you will wall something along the lines of this, then you're going to molly back haul to get rid of that little cubby space. And normally there's like a smoke here. So you're going to get inside the smoke and then you're going to flash out to clear, what do you call that, close left player.
Yep.
And then you're just running it down to elbow. If you still have that second flash because you didn't use it early, you would then use your second flash here. If you don't have a second flash, you would just walk up and try to clear it with your teammate.
For things like Viper Wall, Neon Wall, and Phoenix Wall, if someone's standing on top of platform, can they see over the wall? Like if someone is right here,
Yeah, the heaven angle. That's a good question.
can they see over this wall? Like, of course, if you're close to it, probably not. But if you're like, back here,
I don't know. My guess would be no, because I haven't seen it ever, but it's possible. So yeah, I don't know on that one. But normally this is your exec util. Your Sova Dart will likely go just to clear this corner. But if you're playing with a Phoenix and you have that firewall there, then in the flash, then you probably don't need to dart that. You can actually bounce your dart off of this back wall to land deeper to scan.
and pressure halls.
Yes, to pressure
And so
halls.
my gut here is you really want to be taking halls. Like you don't want to be
Yes.
trying to plant without taking halls or clearing halls.
Correct. If you don't have halls, you pretty much just insta lose. And also the main benefit I think of taking halls is that you can round this corner and start pressuring the B link players. So now any player that was trying to run out and flood now has to play timid and then play inside. Which means you're safe.
Are you trying to take that fight, or are you only trying to ping pong off of them already peeking out and trying to shoot your teammates?
Yeah, you don't want to take the fight too aggressively. Like if this player is back here holding you, you don't want to take that fight. So like you kind of want to time it in a way to where you think they're coming out already, or like you're saying when your teammates are already fighting. But I wouldn't say you should be super reserved in that fight. I guess one of the benefits of doing the B-Link smoke is that you can immediately take halls and then go for that fight. So maybe with a Phoenix wall, like if you're playing Phoenix, maybe doing the B-Link smoke makes more sense because the wall already allows you to cross and not worry about CT. And then you can immediately go and fight B-Link. Whereas if you don't have Phoenix, maybe you need the CT smoke so that you can actually cross the halls a little bit easier.
Is there any, in terms of pathing, if you don't have a wall, are you always pathing like this into back halls, or sometimes are you trying to path over here?
That's a tough one. I would say it's rare to go right side. So let me kind of clear a little bit of this util here and throw the Phoenix out. So it's rare that a player will fully commit on the routing to go right side, but it's not that uncommon for the player that's planting to kind of go through the smoke and kind of sit next to this box and maybe take a step out to contest the B-Link flood and kind of like fight from here. And then your jet, obviously, or like your entry duelist will go towards halls, and you're kind of just like praying that they win that duel. And then you might have like a second player trailing the jet, and then like maybe, I just realized I have two jets here. You might have a second player trailing the jet, and then you might have like the second player trailing the player going for the plant. But it's not that common to full push towards the link side unless, I guess, you have that smoke and you just have like really good util there, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not that common, I don't think.
Where are the common plant positions?
Yeah, so the one that I see a ton in the lower ranks is just directly onto this box in the corner. It's the safest
not
plant.
That one?
So that is another common one. So the first one here by the safe box is your safest plant, which is why I see it so much.
Okay.
But I would say the best plant you can do is the one you put. But the problem is that box is completely spammable from spawn. So even if you have it smoked off, they could just kind of destroy you. Yeah. So the plant you will see in higher ranks is slightly off-centered here. And then you look towards long so that it kind of just like comes out a little bit more.
Yeah, okay.
And then you can kind of play the plant from here. I think this is also the plant that you'll see in pro games.
Yeah.
And the benefit of this plant is that you actually, like the spawn player doesn't have a sightline on you. It's blocked by that little pillar. So you can only really die from the heaven player or the B-Link player running out, which your teammates should have that.
Sure. Okay. And then so where are you trying to play post plant?
You want to at least have one player halls, and then pretty much everyone else is kind of just yonder playing spam. If your teammates are supporting your halls player, then you might have like a player closer towards long, like here maybe, or like even on that default box. and then they're kind of trying to control the B link. Oops, the players coming out B link. But most of the time, you kind of just leave one player halls. They're taking that fight, and then if it's planted for long, everyone kind of just goes back and plays long.
I see.
But you can kind of have variations where you have like 1 or 2 players off site, and then like 1 or 2 players on site.
If it's planted safe, are you trying to play more on site?
You have to. You have to.
So then, what does that post plant positioning look like?
It's honestly random. You might just have like 2 players back hall and then 2 players a little bit closer here, maybe 1 by default, and then you're kind of just like hoping that you get good timing on their flood. If your smoke comes back up, then it's a little bit more comfortable because you might be able to like get close to one of the smokes and kind of hold it from there. A really good position to play on site that's a little bit tricky is actually right next to this pillar. You could play it in a way that you're safe from link, spawn, and heaven, and then kind of pick your timing to peek out. So I like to actually play that spot in 1v1s. If I know there's spawn, I can plant there and then kind of use the pillar to play around. But it's a very tricky spot to make work. There's a reason why on-site post-plant Pearl B-site isn't very common. And I think it's because really the most viable spot is halls. But it's likely that if Tejo gets picked on this map, we aren't going to be seeing halls plant at all.
Because you can just, util dump it. Do you ever want to push through to link or to CT?
Objectively, no. I would say like 90% of the time, no.
Yeah.
The only times you would is like if you kill the flood,
Yeah.
like really quickly, and then you just want to secure that space before the rotator goes in. But yeah, there is an argument to push link if they have Killjoy ult, because the Killjoy ult here is pretty powerful. But if you did the proper long plant, you can just, you could still play the bomb from back here. So it's not it's not necessary to push the Killjoy ult. Whereas like on Haven, for example, you might have to push the Killjoy ult, but it's kind of up to the attackers if they want to or not here.
Does a B split or link, does it help your B hit at all?
So like yes and no. It's more common than it used to be for some reason. Maybe it's because like the B long hold is better, so like people are going street more. But the reason why it does help slightly is because it gets rid of this angle from defenders and it gets rid of spawn flood. So like obviously if you're a street and B long, they have less places to play. So it is valuable, but the downside is that you can kind of get pushed from the back. And
that's pretty common.
Yeah, so they might even come from like here. They might actually just wrap all the way around, which is also kind of, it happens too. So it's like a good split, but it's also kind of awkward, I think.
Okay.
So you don't really see it too often.
Is there a different approach on pistol round?
You kind of just go mid and brawl, to be honest. I mean, it kind of goes back to that eco, I think, where you just smoke this and you fight connector. Or sometimes you'll take art and then reverse take connector like this. But other than that, not really. Like you'll see a lot of people just slam B as well if you have Phoenix, because Phoenix pistol buy is insane. You can go light shields, wall, and flash. Or sorry, light shields, wall, and molly, because the flash is free. And you actually now can go regen shield and wall because the flash is free. So yeah, if you have Phoenix, you'll probably try B.
And the eco round would be just trying to go connector, smoke it off, and generate chaos, play some jail Valorant.
Yeah, pretty much.
Maybe let's switch to defense then.
Sure. Yeah, let's talk defense.
So how are we setting up or thinking about positions? Do we dedicate 2 people to mid on either side, or are we just having one person mid? Like, how are you thinking about that setup?
So there's 2 setups that are common. I would say if you're playing the Killjoy in mid, oftentimes the Killjoy is kind of like doing her best to gather info here, and you might have like the occasional players play there. So let's kind of just start with the Killjoy util. It looks something like this. There's a bunch of different small variations, but something along those lines. If you're playing a Clove, you probably will be playing the Clove towards spawn in ranked, like a fast rotate, which will kind of lead your Sova to kind of gather A info, either through the art window or A specifically, and then your Jet and Phoenix are probably going to be finding the B line here, and it looks something like this. But there's so much room for people to float. Your Clove might end up playing A. Your Sova could dart A main while your Jet and Phoenix push up. The Sova could dart A main while the Phoenix pushes up, flashes, and just gets the orb. Like, you have a lot of room to play with this setup, but the thing that makes it work is the fact that the Killjoy util allows you to kind of play a 1 mid setup or like a 2 mid setup and not really
give up that much.
Yeah, give up too much. The other setup that you might play is the Killjoy towards B side, where like the turret is kind of in Link and the alarm bot for B, in which case you need more players to kind of play art. And in this case, you might have like a softer B hold, where, I don't know, like your Killjoy honestly might just be completely alone, and then you just have like a lot of players towards this side of the map. You might have like a player towards connector and it looks something like this, but yeah, it's pretty dependent, I think, on your Sentinel, and it also depends on how aggressive you want to play the B line. So if your Sentinel isn't B, and she's back over here, then your Jet might be playing somewhat aggressive to play for the space. She might be pushing up Pillar or Cubby to kind of, you know, see if you can get a pick there, supported by a Phoenix or a Sova. So like, it really just depends. Like Sentinels will play passive, and then ideally the duelists will try to take fights somewhere else. So you could take the B line, you could take the A line, you could try to take the art fights. There are some trap plays you could do as well, but there's nothing super cut and dry and clear compared to something like Ascent, where you almost always contest neutral space. I think Pearl is kind of just like, oh, I have a read, they're going to go B, let me set up my op B, or let me farm my A orb because I'm 2 off of Phoenix ult, or they start mid every single round, but we don't have the util to fight it, so I'm going to go and take A main space and sit behind this box.
Sure.
You know, there's, yeah, a little bit more variation, I guess. But that's the two setups. The Killjoy kind of dictates the bulk of it.
What about this? Like, do we care about fighting for this space?
Not necessarily holding it. I mean, you'll see it sometimes where like someone will play behind the box, and then like another player will kind of bait here. The Sova has the line here, and then you kind of have like this guy will swing out and get kills. But there's not really like proper setups to hold that space. More often it's kind of just like a Jet going for that early duel, falling back while supported by a teammate to break the util for the Jet. So it's like you go for a fight here, you fall back, and then the actual art hold happens like here, where you have like a player in connector and a player back here. And then the smoke will kind of support that. Mm-hmm. A unique smoke that you can do that I've been seeing is on the box. It doesn't actually block off anything, but it makes the peek into art very awkward, as you can kind of imagine if there's just a random smoke on the box. So oftentimes it kind of just stops the art push. It's a little bit bigger of a smoke with Astra, obviously, compared to Clove. So I don't know how effective it is on Clove, but I have been seeing it.
Where do you want to start, A or B?
Let's talk about A. A. So if you're taking aggro A main space, you have the smoke here, supported by some util. So let's just say your Phoenix Flash. You're pretty much trying to deny enemies, like attackers, the orb while you are getting the orb. Mm-hmm. With this type of setup, your Killjoy is probably going to be B side. Mm-hmm. And this is probably what it looks like. You might combo that with the Sova Dart if you want to. If you do have the Sova Dart, you might consider not smoking, just so you can get more of the scan. So that's an aggro A. If you're doing a passive A where you're rotating in for the flood, this works really well if you can get your smoke in time and you have like a smoke for main, and then you have like your dart kind of floating in. So if I'm playing like kind of mid-con rotator and they smoke me off art for an A hit, where's my second smoke here? Let's just kind of, I'll put attacker smoke as omen just for difference. So if I'm going through art here, there's a dart you can do like high up on this left corner that pretty much scans everything. It's pretty basic, and then you kind of just flood out here. Otherwise, if you're on A site, like backside already, the other dart you would do is just along this wall. You can actually aim it through the window in church. But basically the dart helps a lot with the A hold, and you're kind of just trying to get wall bang kills. You can actually spam through pits on the planner. You can obviously
with like an Odin, or even just with the Vandal or
you can do that with the Vandal. You might even be able to do it with a Ghost. Okay. But I don't know if it would kill, but I think medium pen works there. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of your A holds. A site smoke that you might consider is on the corner of left side site, because if you kind of can imagine, it stops a player pushing it. So pretend like this Jet is an enemy. It stops this player from pushing forward because it's one-wayed, and it also stops the player close to site pushing. So it keeps your secret player alive. So that's a pretty strong mid-site smoke. But yeah, other than that, it's mainly just trying to stay alive back sight. You might get a pick as they run in, but you're not really full holding that front sight smoke.
And you're really not probably ever committing to this position.
No, I mean, if you're playing chamber, you could play there, of
Sure.
course. But sometimes on like eco rounds, or like if you're fully stacked on the bomb site, you will play players close to the smoke. But unlike your standard holds, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Cool. Should we move over to B?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, is there anything left for B post plant or A post plant?
Like for the retake?
Yeah, you're just gonna ideally smoke bomb and fight A main, not the reverse, not smoke A main and try to defuse the bomb.
Yeah, like you almost always have to smoke the bomb to defuse on this map for A or B, which means that you just kind of have to win the gun duels, which kind of sucks. But yeah, the retake honestly is hit or miss. It's dependent on whether or not you have art control. Because if you have art control, you can kind of focus all of your attention on A main. If you don't have art control, you're kind of split, and then now they can kind of catch timings on you. So sometimes it makes sense for you to like go and re-clear art, but it can be pretty difficult to re-clear if they're playing like a player late behind this box or even late mid like that. But that is the way you would want to do it. Take art first.
Okay, then what about B?
Yeah, so B, standard, you smoke the choke, and then ideally,
I mean, maybe before we even get to the standard, like smoke the choke, what's the thinking around pushing up B to like cubby or holding behind pillar, like having pressure further up? And then my second part is like, what about the like one and done positions? Is that for jets only? You know, is it only jet and like a chamber that can be in this position or this position?
right.
Or we should always have someone try to be there.
So let's kind of start with the close positions. You kind of want to think about the close positions as I'm punishing them for not using enough util. So if like they're just running out B long and not smoking the cross, or they're not flashing, or they're not darting to clear the pillar player, you should play players close, even if it's not a jet or a chamber or a Reyna that can get out. You just want to try to get two and, you know, punish the fact that they aren't using util to clear you. But you don't really play that position if they are properly clearing you, because it's kind of a death sentence.
Would you hold that position on a pistol round?
Most likely not.
Okay.
Most of the time with pistol rounds, you will be playing like somewhere on site because they don't have that much util to actually clear the site. So you can kind of get away with it. But that's what the two forward positions are about. The two back positions on the one and dones, I think, are very good for people to play regardless of one and dones, because the goal of it is to just hold the smoke. So let's just say like your clove, which I did an omen smoke, so I guess we'll just say omen. But you know, you just hold the smoke here. So ideally you play anti-flash, or you know, someone breaks your dart, but you're hopefully just being a body, like a piece of contact to actually disrupt the execute, and try to do your best to get kills here. The safer alternative is obviously inside elbow, in which you dodge the util and then immediately peek out. Most of the time your first kill is going to be the player that rocks out of the smoke and goes towards default like this. That kill is pretty free most of the time, and then you kind of go from there. But normally if you have a player playing one of these two positions, your B rotators can kind of flood in and your B hold looks pretty strong.
When are you calling for that smoke? Like, is it when like enemy players, like, are you calling for that smoke when the enemy players are flooding out here, or are you trying to call for it when you think that they're pushed up?
I would say like probably like in the middle somewhere. I mean, you don't want to do it as soon as you see sign of life, because then you get rid of any info you could have, but you do want the smoke to be up before they execute, or like right as they're executing. So it's probably better to do it early than never. But if you're trying to min-max it, you probably want to do it like as they're crossing like this line or something.
And so as you are thinking about this, so like, you know, they're hitting the site, you've got this guy in the corner trying to be a nuisance, your team is rotating. Is there like a preference or a benefit to rotating through like Link versus Spawn and Coming Heaven?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So if there was no threat in the world and you can go as fast as you can, you would go B-Link because it's the shorter rotate.
Okay.
But the problem with going B-Link is that you just make like so much noise that this enemy Astra would just walk up mid door and shoot you in the back.
Yeah.
And then you die. The other downside of actually going through B-Link is even if this lurker doesn't exist, and you're smoked off, let's just throw the Omen smoke here again, and they did successfully jet dash out, it's very, very difficult to actually get that flood out because like there's a smoke here and you don't really know where to pre-aim. So what I tell my clients is if you're already the B-Link player and you're fast, like let's say you're the B-Link player, you're playing here, by all means 100% rotate B-Link. But if you're like anywhere else, like you're the art player, you're the connector player, you're the A player, just take the time to just go spawn and then rotate through spawn or heaven instead, because you don't want to get smoked off and you can't.
What's the choice between heaven and CT or like heaven and hell on this spawn rotate?
I mean, honestly, most of the time I kind of just gravitate towards heaven. I don't know why, but I guess it's because when the smoke is fading, I feel like the angles are a little bit better. But if you're playing Sova, 100% you go heaven because you can dart on top of like this, like any part of this left wall, or you can dart towards the that corner. Either or, you're just looking for spam kills through the smoke. So Sova going heaven makes a lot of sense. Everyone else is kind of just preference, yeah.
And then assuming, enemies planted, you've traded a few kills, now you're doing a retake scenario. What do you actually, maybe before we even get there, if you are the halls player, are you willing to just die on site, or are there situations when you're going to try and get off site and retake?
It depends on ultimates. So if they have like heavy ults, then you're just going to peace out. But otherwise, like I would heavily incentivize your halls player to play for the site. I mean, I can't really think of many situations where I would want them to fall back. Maybe you can kind of like get a kill and then try to like fall, like and play safer on this side of halls. But it's pretty rare that you would play for the site hold and then like try to get out. I have seen it before in VCT where there was a smoke done here. As you can kind of imagine, this smoke will allow the defenders to flood onto site, but also give an exit path for your halls player.
Got it.
So I have seen that. Whether or not it's good, I don't know, but I have seen it before. But yeah, I would try to incentivize your players on B to play for the B hold, because if they get the bomb down for long, you're going to lose the post plant like 80% of the time. I forget the stat, but it's like something ridiculous.
I think even the best retaking teams only win the retake like 40% of the time. And that's a high retake percentage.
That's very high, yeah. So
it's
very
in coordinated play. I mean, the other team's not coordinated either, but I think that tells you, in general, almost by default, unless you know. Actually, I mean, I'd love to get your opinion on this. Unless you know you're going to die, you would rather try to get one or two and then dip.
Yeah.
Or try to get one or two and just die, or try to prevent them from planting.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to go 1 for 1 and die if it's like certain bomb sites like this. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that too. Like if you are the smokes player and you're playing Omen instead of Clove and you die, then maybe it's actually not worth for you. Sure. But if you're playing Clove and you get one and die, it's like pretty good still. So yeah, it is a weird thing, I'm gonna be honest, but for the mentality I try to tell my clients is I'd rather you try to figure out how to have successful site holds, just because the alternative is retaking, and retaking in ranks, but even just in general, is very difficult. So yeah.
And then how are you thinking through this post plant? If it's planted for long, you're going to smoke the bomb, you're going to try to take fights. That's basically it.
Yeah, pretty much. So you have a couple of ways to do this, but obviously you have to take halls first. So whatever that looks like, it's only like you're trying to like slowly walk out spawn, and then whatever util you have, you just throw it into halls. So that part honestly is kind of like 50-50 whether or not you can actually take halls or not. But let's kind of go into the mentality that we did take halls. How would you proceed with the post plant from there? Or the retake? Most of the time you commit one smoke on the diffuse, and then if you have damage util to clear behind pillar, that's what you'll do. Say you have like a Phoenix Molly, Aftershock from Breach, something of that nature, you'll do that there. And then pretty much you'll have like a couple players maybe scale to try to get a deeper line on the left guy or the right guy, and you're kind of just trying to stop them from peeking. So you can actually get half on the bomb. But you don't want to go too far if you only have one player on the bomb, because if they happen to get spammed, you're going to have to make the whole journey back to get to the bomb.
I see.
So it depends on how many players you have, for sure. But that's normally what it looks like. You hope and pray that your diffuser can get half while you're trying to take fights.
What would you try and do on an eco round?
The most common is buy a shotgun and play mid somewhere. So it's even on gun rounds, you'll see sometimes like higher level players will just buy like a Judge or a Bucky and just
The
sit right next
Bucky
to
is
doors.
so good.
It's crazy.
It's so like it's just like, I mean, unless you are a demon or you're going to be holding down a long line, like the choice between I guess if you're a demon, yeah, the sheriff too. But I just for the extra, isn't it Bucky? Is it 950 or is it 850?
I think it might be 850. I don't
Yeah,
remember
so for
actually.
50 more than the sheriff, because the sheriff's 800, right?
Yeah.
For 50 more than a sheriff, like if you get someone in your face, you can jump and just shoot. It just feels like in an eco round, if you go 1-for-1, that's a good eco round. That feels so much higher percentage in general than the marshal or a sheriff for such similar cost.
I mean, I'm glad you bring that up. Like 90, maybe 80. Like 80% of players shouldn't even be buying sheriff on round 2. You're probably better off just buying util and not buying anything. Or if you are going to invest into a weapon, you buy like a stinger or a Bucky, because it's kind of hard to get that sheriff one tap. Like if you're like pushing Ascendant Plus, or your mechanics are like really good and you're in lower ranks, of course consider buying a sheriff. But for like, I mean, honestly, like anyone like gold or below, like you either stick to the classic. If you want to invest into a gun and you want to do it cheaply, you might actually just buy a ghost.
You wouldn't just go full armor specter?
If you're forcing, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
No, assuming you won.
Oh, if you won pistol. Yeah, I'm talking
pistol.
if you lose pistol.
If you lose pistol. Okay, yeah, totally
yeah.
agree.
Yeah, if you win pistol, you'll almost never buy a sheriff. You should be buying like some type of gun. So Stinger is my go-to, but a lot of people prefer the Spectre for good reason. But yeah, the Bucky or the Judge goes crazy too.
Yeah, I just think like on eco rounds, a Bucky or a Shorty, it just gives you way more value, like on average, because you're going to just be sitting in a close situation. And I mean, if you're in a close situation and they run into you, you're just highly likely to get a kill.
Yep.
You might even get 2 if you have a Bucky. And if you're running into a long range situation, you're going to die anyways, but you're going to die anyways probably if you have a sheriff.
Yep. I mean, again, there's an asterisk on that for like certain skill levels, like the sheriff can, but yeah.
Yes.
Majority of players.
If you are mechanically gifted, then and you are a high ranked player and you already know who you are, then this is moot. But I think for like just thinking about your EV, your expected value on these rounds, yeah, I think it's. But it seems uncommon. Like you just see less players do it
100%.
than you think they should for how effective it is.
Because like on streams, you see everyone buy sheriffs, and it's also just more satisfying to play a sheriff. So
and obviously there's more skill involved. But hey, like a win's a win. You know,
right.
You don't get more RR for doing it in style.
Nope.
You know, if you're 300 ACS with a Judge, you don't lose RR for the headshot percentage.
Imagine though.
Well, I mean, who's the was it Smoggy on EDG on Raze was like 100% Judge almost? Who was it? I forget.
I think he might be right.
Like he was just like
full
saturating
right?
into split with Judge all the time, and it was just he was a menace.
It's viable, man. I mean, it used to be even way more viable, but I'm glad we're not in those times anymore.
Yeah. To hell with gun hygiene. We can just jump in people's faces and hold down +1, right?
Or when Neon was running around sliding and one-tapping people.
Okay. That's Pearl. We finally did it.
We did.
We only have Abyss left.
And then we'll be all caught up.
Until they released a new map.
Yeah, which it'll be a while, I think. It'll be a while.
Yeah, there's nothing new coming, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the next act, Ascent, is coming back.
Okay.
And yeah.
There are still 35 spots left in the TVL tent. If you want to join, ko-fi.com/thisvalorantlife. It's $5 a month, and it will go towards someone getting a scholarship with Dopai for a 2-month. Is it 2 months?
Yeah.
2-month coaching program. And so that'd be super cool for the first scholarship winner, or I guess awardee. I don't know what the word is. Scholarshipee. There's got to be a word for this.
There's probably a word for that. Yeah.
that would get it that otherwise wouldn't afford it. So that's super cool. So please join us in the community. It's a bunch of super cool people. Yeah, as always, we so appreciate you listening to this podcast. Hope you have a great day.
Good luck on Pearl, guys.